Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to We Are Providers, a look into giving circles led by men of color. My name is Ilyasa N. Shabazz, and I am the Marketing and Communications Director at Philanthropy Together. We are a global initiative to grow and strengthen the Giving Circle movement, and we are so proud to be hosting We Give Summit this year and having important conversations just like this one that we're about to have with Giving Circle leaders from Community Investment Network. This is a conversation, so please do feel free to turn on your cameras and be in community with us. Please note that closed captioning is available and can be enabled at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And we do ask that at the end of the session that you please share feedback with us using our 2-question poll that will come up at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joy Webb. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Ilyasa. Thank you. We Give Summit and Philanthropy Together and all the partners. We're excited to be here today. My name is Joy Webb, and I am the Program Director for Community Investment Network. The Community Investment Network is a national giving circle network of African Americans and communities of color, and we inspire to connect and strengthen African Americans and communities of color to leverage their collective resources and create the change that they wish to see. Today, I have the honor to have a conversation with some dynamic leaders that lead the all men's giving circles in our network. They are leaders within their circles and also leaders within CIN. So we wanted to share this because we know that oftentimes you don't look at a philanthropist as maybe even Black men or Latinx men or men of color. You may not even look at it as people of color, but we wanted to showcase that we are here, we are philanthropists, and have that conversation so we can learn about what's happening in the communities and how they're leading the charge. And that's why this session is called We Are Providers. So I have the honor to let these men introduce themselves. I am going to start with Mr. Brandon Bruce. Can you share a little bit about who you are, what circle you are from, and the location of your circle?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Joy. And thank you again to the We Give Summit and Philanthropy Together for the invite today. My name is Brandon Bruce. I am from Denver, Colorado. I am currently the chair of the Denver African American Philanthropists. So we're the first giving circle in the nation's West for all African American men. We were established May 15th in 2012. So we are extremely close to our 10-year mark. Extremely excited about being a part of this circle and all the work that we do.
Thank you. Laphonso, can you share a little bit about yourself, where you are and what circle you are from?
Yes, thank you, Joy. My name is Laphonso Salas. I'm a part of LIFT Giving Circle, so that is Latinos Impacting Our Future Together. So I'm a member, but also a founding father, and we are a Denver-based philanthropy group, and we focus on recruiting members, men of the Latinx community.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Terry Love.
Well, good afternoon or good evening to everyone. I am Terry Love, one of the founders of Real Engagement through Philanthropy, REAP, an all men's giving circle in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm actually a former board member of CIN and also currently living in Houston, so part of Black Philanthropy Houston as well. So I'm glad to be here and talk about, again, We Are Providers, Black men or minority men in philanthropic giving circles.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that great insight of who you are and where you are located. I want to jump into the conversation. This will be a conversation of community. We are part of a network of donors, and we would love for you all to be part of our community. So feel free to take your lovely names off the screen and show your beautiful faces. If you have questions, make sure you drop them in the chat, but I'll get the conversation started. I'm going to start with Terry. We have seen that about 76% of giving circles are typically founded or composed of mostly women. As a founding member of REAP, and I know you have been a part of other giving circles, can you tell me what made you start that circle? What brought that on?
So there's actually I guess, longer story behind that. As you pointed out, I have been a part of other giving circles within CIN as well. And when I moved to Phoenix, I wanted to carry with me that tradition of collective giving and engaging African American donors. At the time, it was not specifically for a men's giving circle, but speaking to and getting accustomed to the conversation at the foundation that we were working with at the time, it was getting the idea behind a women's giving circle, a men's giving circle. What could the community benefit by? And REAP in itself is a giving circle that focuses on and empowers minority men or young men ages 16 to 22. And that focus for us was wanting to make an impact in lives of people that looked like us, and also engaging people in that community that had the resources to be able to give back to the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to now pass the mic to Mr. Brandon Bruce. We know that men are leaders and head of households in our culture, oftentimes looked at to provide lots of things, lots of services. Giving circles connect community and oftentimes provide to community when others do not. We oftentimes fill a niche. We don't necessarily, we aren't looked at as a foundation, but we meet the needs of our community. I am aware of, and I want others to be aware of, that DAP had a project that focused on Black men teachers called Apple Tree Project. Can you share a little bit about that and how that impacted the community and what it led to?
Absolutely. So the Apple Tree Project was really a formation of, when you think about the Angel Tree Project, where you have Angel Tree, when you pick a name off the tree and then you provide that group or person with all the gifts or some of the gifts that they have named on that tree. Well, what we wanted to do was trying to close a gap in our community that we're seeing. And one of those gaps is African-American male teacher representation, as well as coaches. So we understand that when you have teachers that look like you, that you can learn from, you're more likely to be successful in the classroom. The issue is with our extremely high cost of living, with gentrification, with non-equal pay or pay inequalities in our community, we're finding that our African-American teachers and or coaches are supplanting what they're looking to do in the classroom with dollars out of their pocket. So a lot of teachers do that. So we can only imagine how much more impactful it is for a teacher to have to do that when your pay is not equal. So we decided to say, instead of teachers, we see tons of fundraisers for their kids in their classrooms, and we absolutely want to make sure that we keep those fundraisers going. But we wanted to impact and retain those teachers and coaches in our community as well. So we created a grant that went directly to those teachers and coaches so that they can continue in their classrooms or continue coaching on their fields, so that we could continue to have representation that look like us in those classrooms. And statistically, it shows that when you have that representation, you just perform so much better. I'm really excited about the Apple Tree grant. We're about to start our second round of the Apple Tree grant. Would be completely remiss if I didn't mention some of the sponsors that helped create that grant, which is Rooted Denver was a major contributor. We had Ogletree Nash and Smoke law firm also contribute very heavily to that. And then of course, one of our own members, Estes Park Health Foundation, Brother Kevin Mullins, his team provided a lot of the logistical work to make sure we were able to get these grants out of the door. So Apple Tree Grant Part 2 is coming to you very soon here as well.
So I have a follow-up question, because we oftentimes talk about time, talent, and treasure. We know that it took time and talent for you all to figure it out. But I know there was a number that was provided to these teachers. So can you share that? Because that is impactful, and we want to make sure that, we give you a good shout out.
Absolutely. So in total, we gifted a little over $30,000 this round. We're looking to almost triple that in the second round. So we're excited about opening up that grant process here soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, and for being intentional about how you service the community by leading in a way that maybe somebody might not have thought about, but clearly we know that there's a need for teachers and for representation, et cetera. Laphonso, I'm going to pass the mic to you now. LIFT has been built with many servicemen composed of firemen and police officers and other emergency personnel. I know one thing you all work on is to strategically build community and strengthen relationships with people of color and the police. Can you share a little bit about how that came about and why Lyft felt that was so important?
Yeah, so I would say this kind of came up, I mean, because we have um, the access to have these members in our philanthropy group. So we had Paul Pazin, who's the Denver police chief, as one of our founding members. We have Chief Olin, who's been a member of, he's the fire chief, and he's been a member of Lyft as well. And we've had other members that are both on fire and police. And something that came up was when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. Obviously, there's tensions on both sides of service members and non-service members, which we were comprised of. And we were able to have kind of that table to have discussions. And so it was really good. We had a meeting that was just completely discussions about Black Lives Matter, what the police are doing and what the fire department is doing to kind of better serve the community during those times. And it was awesome to have both of the fire and the police chief in our group that were able to be a part of those meetings. One of the things that the police chief said that they were going to try and do better is they had a program which is called the STAR program that they had just recently started. And he wanted to commit to kind of increasing the calls that the STAR program responded to. And so this STAR program consists of EMTs and sorry, I have notes just so I don't mess it up, but it's behavioral health clinicians. And so they go to low acuity, low risk calls, and they go to calls with homeless people or drug abuse, or, you know, as a firefighter, these are some calls that we run on, and they're repeat calls of the same people. So the STAR program is able to go on those calls and help get these people resources, or, you know, it's not a police presence that's responding to these calls. It's someone that's going to be able to better understand and help these people. So he committed to increasing the amount of STAR members that they had, and were able to go to these calls. And I believe last year they had around 2,000, and they're hoping to 2,000 calls that they responded to. And I think they're trying to be around 10,000 this year. So that was an awesome thing. And then the police chief, he's just kind of committed to diversifying the fire department, having it look more like the people, the community that we are serving. So that's something that he's committed to, and I've seen it. I've went through a fire academy, and there was 8 women in it out of 24, which is pretty unheard of. So that was awesome. And then also just, it's important to build that trust with the community and with these community members. And like I said, be able to have that dialogue. So sorry if I'm rambling.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, we talk a lot about trust-based philanthropy in our giving circles and how we actually connect the dots with community, because a lot of times people don't trust. And so especially big business philanthropy, it is really important and key that as providers, we build that trust. So I appreciate the service that you're doing, as I know that you're a firefighter, and how you all have been very intentional, because it is very hard to, you know, if the community doesn't trust you, it's nice for them to be able to have conversations, for you all to have those courageous conversations and make sure that community is formed and built and they can thrive together, because they now have a face and a name, and they know, hey, I can go and talk to the police chief. It's not, you know, so taboo, or the fire chief, and also all of the other service members that are helping to be intentional with the STAR program. I applaud you all for your efforts and just being there in the space to make sure that that happens. You all are a presence, and that helps community know that, you know, hey, you have other people in your corner as well. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to Mr. Terry Love. REAP influences the next generation of young philanthropists, and they've done that in a number of ways. But because you all have been intentional, can you share one of the initiatives and tell a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to back up a little bit and tell a little bit more. I didn't go into much detail at the beginning about our founding, but one of the intentional reasons that I had wanted to have a giving circle at the foundation that we were working with, Arizona Community Foundation in Phoenix, was to, one, be a part of philanthropic giving, or excuse me, the philanthropic community on the supply side of giving. The faces of, or the look or the appearance of those people that are on the supply side of philanthropy typically do not look like that of ours. It may not be by age, it may not be by demographic, or in our case, both. And so to see a young African-American or young person of color being a donor in a space, in many cases, going into the room where a grant was happening, our face was looked at as, oh, so which award are you receiving today? And it was a lot of a shift in conversation when we pointed out, oh no, we're the funders. And so call it what you may, but it was very much this is something that has to happen in this space, because I know that there are other people that are out there like me, like Brandon, like Laphonso, like Joy, like Sarah, like Ilyasa, who are in this space doing this work and are not necessarily the face of philanthropy. And I wanted that to change. Because of that, it brought a conversation of, well, everyone in this room or everyone in this space, everyone that is doing this work has an opportunity to have that title or to own that title of philanthropist. We are philanthropists, truly. And so in doing so, how do we dispel this? Well, being a part of collective giving is one optional way to do so. If you have the means and the funds to be able to do so, being that person that writes that $1 million check and working with your community is also an option. I do not want to put any limits on what people can do or say in that space, but in the option for REAP, it was, how do I get together these 5, 10, 20 men of color to be able to work in this community and to be able to do programs like REAP Reads, REAP actually going into the community and actually planting in communities as well to actually develop the area for food deserts. All of these aspects were intentional ways to connect with community and be active in our philanthropy, hence the name, Real Engagement Through Active Philanthropy. Out of that though, I will say the, I guess, shape or shift from traditional look of, and I don't even want to say traditional because the tradition of philanthropy spans beyond what we put into mainstream media, but the iconic lens of what philanthropy is has typically been a foundation writing huge checks. That's not necessarily what philanthropy is for every community. It could very well be the understanding and seeing that backpacks need to be met for the 3rd grade at a school that you happen to live in your community. And so you make sure that every person in that school, in that grade, has a backpack with supplies for the year. That is a philanthropic effort. In doing so, REAP has been had the ability to influence and shape the landscape of where we're serving by being a, I would say, I don't want to say role model, but being a example of what that philanthropic effort can be. And it has been expressed or personified, and I think this is what you're leading to, Joy, in the fact that we had 2 members who, their sons, who are at the ages, I think they were 16 and 18 at the time, pointed out that we see what you're doing in the community, Dad, or Mr. Hopkins, or Mr. Gillette at the time. And we want to be philanthropists as well. We recognize we don't have the income, we don't have the money that you all might have, but we do have time. We do have effort and energy. And so out of REAP grew SEED. Students engage in ethical decisions. And it is from 2 individuals, Jason Gillette and Atlas Hopkins, who decided, we see our parents, we see our fathers engaging in the community, being philanthropists, and we want to be able to do this as well. So from that, their efforts started started SEED. And then from that, I will say their efforts and their fundraising far surpass the parents' generation in that it took them only 1 year to reach over $50,000 versus when REAP started, it took us a couple of years to reach the 50,000 mark. And we were grown, have jobs individuals that were contributing to our funds. So to see the exponential support for, we say, the next generation of philanthropists, but I also go back and say the current generation of philanthropists as well, because typically you hear philanthropy, you hear someone left an endowment or left a gift to a fund, or in their older age because they're retired now decide I have an excess of funds I'm going to gift to. But this active philanthropy shift that REAP has been a part of has been one of the caveats as to why I think it is so important and so crucial for people like Laphonso, people like Brandon, people like Joy, people like Taisha to be involved in and be that face of philanthropy, because it lets me see that, well, if Terry is doing this, even if it's not to the same scale or to the same limit, let me at least put my effort in, put my dollars in, put my dollars and effort in. Or if I don't have either of those, but I have a story of how this is important and how it will shape your community, I will at least tie you to the people that you need to be tied to and share my story as to why it's a monumental or pivotal thing. And so that tie and that connection and that treasure of your testimony can actually be so influential in these moments. So from that, I would say REAP has been able to shift what philanthropic giving or philanthropic involvement in a community looks like, and also shapes what the generation or the impact of what the next generation and what they can do can look like as well.
Well, thank you. And that really is a provider, right? I mean, that this topic is we are providers. You all have provided this service and let the youth see it. And then they also wanted to do it. They wanted to be it. They had a representation. They saw it. They said, I can do that. I want to do that. How can I be a part of that? And then you all let them chart their own course. They don't have to do it the same way that you all have done it. Clearly, they know how to get money quicker than you all. No.
Well, from that, I will say, I will interject here. In many cases, you're absolutely right. Chart your own way, chart your own method. Brandon, I was there, a part of those conversations before DAP was founded. And I saw as Lyft took off as well because of my involvement with CIN. But understanding that you all each have different ecospheres. REAP has its own different ecosphere as well. What works for one organization may not work for another. What works for one philanthropist may not work for another in terms of how they want to shape or impact their community. One person may want to be the anonymous donor. The other person might want to say, hey, I wrote this check. I want to be involved with this. I want to make sure that you all know exactly how to be a good steward of this, and et cetera, et cetera. Another person may not have any of those things, but say, my voice is not going to not be heard because I'm going to speak for those people that cannot speak for themselves. All of those things are important in this space. And I cannot express enough how much we have to give voice to those people and make sure that as they are operating, they're empowered to do so.
I just want to say preach. I appreciate that in so many ways. And I'm going to transition and have a moment of reflection. I want to make it clear that these men are not in very diverse areas per se. We have a 2 circles in Denver, Colorado, where many people where the majority is not African-American or Latinx. And in Arizona, the same is, so they are really trendsetters in their own ways, in their communities and being intentional. So with that being said, this question is for Brandon and Laphonso. I know you all are both located in Denver and you both have sister circles of all women's giving circles. Can you share how working together with your sister circles make community engagement stronger? At CIN, we pride ourselves in saying that we are philanthropists. How has showcasing this in your community with these sister organizations and even you all coming together, I am aware that, you all have had some activities and conversations together. So literally, the power of the people, the power of community, has a great impact. So can you all share a little bit about, your sister circles and how you all have all kind of come together as a resource for communities of color in the Denver, Colorado area? I'll start with Brandon, because he looks like he's serious now.
Anytime you mention SPIN, I have to be serious. So SPIN is the Sisterhood of Philanthropists Impacting Needs. They are housed under the Women Foundation of Colorado. So if you know anything about either of those organizations, you know that I cannot do enough to speak and praise them. SPIN is absolutely doing amazing work in the community, whether it's grants, whether it's actually being in the organizational spaces that they're providing grants to. Always, one thing that I have learned from my SPIN sisters, and something that allows us to impact the community, is to take up space and be unapologetic about it. Absolutely, anytime that there is any media attention, if there is an article, there is a Facebook or Instagram, anything that they find their way into, they always mention us. And we truly appreciate that. So we have learned to do the same, because all it does is extend our reach. You never know you never know what person is going to be able to read about one group, then read about the other group and decide to bless both, or vice versa. You never know what groups need the impacting efforts from either group and decide to reach out to the other. So just speaking about SPIN, I can't give enough praises and honor to the work that they actually do in the community as well. Working with them has been an honor. It's a pleasure. I learn so much from them anytime that we do anything. And usually when we have a granting cycle and we have something that we feel like they would be great to partner with, we absolutely make sure that we reach out to them first and say, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to make this grant together, or bring these funds together, so that we can absolutely have a more impacting reach in the community.
Thank you. Laphonso?
Yeah, and for us, it's funny because we actually wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Latinos Give. They were around a couple years before us, and me and another man kind of got together and were like, there's a Latina giving circle, so let's try and put together a male one. So that's kind of what we did. And my mom, who's a part of Latinos Give, she kind of showed us the ropes, and we kind of rode their coattails into figuring it out. It's funny because she actually went to all of our meetings for probably a year, and were kind of helping us out and like, hey, this is kind of how it's done. This is what you should do. So they helped us a ton. And then also, having that both of the groups together when we do events, and sometimes we have exposure to people that want to join and that they might be a woman and they're more interested in being them, so we can, or being with a women's group. So kind of the ability to divide and conquer on that. And then we've also had 2 grants that we both gave, or 2 groups that we both gave grants to, so that have a little bit more of an impact with our giving. So, yeah.
Thank you. So I know I can see that the chat is blowing up. We have a few questions, but before I open it up and ask the questions that are in the chat, I want to make sure that we get a few words from you all to describe maybe the feeling you get, or the first time you gave that grant, using your time, talent, and treasure, which leads to a testimony, building community, helping organizations. What did that look like for you? Because I think there are some circles that are new, or thinking about starting a circle. And I know what the feeling was for me, but I would love for you all to share, as being men of color and being providers to community. What did that mean when you were able to do that? I will start with, I'll go the opposite. Laphonso, you get to go first.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, that's probably my favorite thing is when we are going through our grant applications, and it just gives you that feeling of being connected, and you kind of get to see what is happening in the community, that if you weren't doing this, that I would have never known that these programs were out there. So it's just very empowering to know that these groups that are focused on helping out the Latinx community are out there, and that they're doing awesome, amazing work. So yeah, that's my favorite time, is being is going through the grant application, and we help them out, but they're doing the groundwork. So that's always my favorite part. And yeah, like I said, just feeling connected.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass the mic, but before you say that, I'm gonna put my words in. As you say that, I think about the work that we do and the work that the organizations that we give to is hard work, but it's also heart work. And so when we're able to combine that and amplify their voices, it leads to greater change, greater community.
Yeah.
I appreciate those words that you had. Brandon, what would you say about how you feel when you give, or what's your favorite part about this whole giving circle experience?
So my favorite part of this whole giving circle experience is creating a legacy of others. I think you have to understand that ancestrally, and you will learn that DAP, the Denver African American Philanthropists, are unapologetically Black. So I'm going to talk about our ancestors. Ancestrally, we were communal. We were not individualistic. We did not believe in just focusing on one person over the greater good of the others. It was actually the exact opposite. So when we give out our grants, when we give out our time, talent, treasure, and testimony, we get to establish our connection back to our roots. So if you've ever done anything like that, you know how fulfilling it can be. And then at the same time, when you're doing this, you're elevating the people around you. Nobody wants to be at the top alone. Nobody wants to be comfortable alone. You want to be able to exercise those comforts in life with others. So when we're giving these grants, when we're able to elevate our community in groups and organizations, we're now creating a playing field that we get to be around each other. We get to see everybody succeed. We get to see our youth win. We get to see women win. We get to see men in our community win. And for that, that is a feeling that's undescribable. And it's something that we continue to do today.
Thank you. Mr. Preacher Man Love, would you like to tell us how you feel?
So I think you strategically did this so that just in case you needed to cut me off because I was going too long, you could. But I'll try to make this quick. I think my very most profound involvement with a grant, not the first one, but the one that was most profound, was the one that I was able to see the impact of what that grant did for the organization later. And I'll go back to, I was not even a part of the grant, but because I was a member of the Giving Circle and was able to give my word or give my vote to say, yes, let's support this organization. This organization called Hustle Phoenix, Phoenix, Arizona, was applying for a grant from REAP. From that first grant, one of the first grants that we gave many cycles ago, has grown that organization to now getting a $250,000 grant from another donor. Part of that has been because we have, as has been mentioned previously, the ability to do trust-based philanthropy. Our organization can make the decision to say, we see the work that you're doing. We understand that you're a new organization, that you don't have the 6 years of proven track records to show what you can do in a community that has been previously reported by the census to say, et cetera, et cetera. But no, we saw what you're doing that one day that we saw you, and we recognized that if you had more funds or more resources or more time, talent, treasure, testimony, and tie investment, what you could do. Seeing that from that first grant accumulate to over $250,000 funding from another organization because they identified that 20 Black people decided that they wanted to support this organization. Maybe we should look more into this organization and see what they're doing in the community. That recognition has made all the difference for me as to why being a part of collective giving and why also making that first investment into, as you said, a trust-based organization has made that much of a difference. So understanding that it's not necessarily something that I may have identified at the very beginning to say, oh, well, this is an organization, let me go give them. But when 20 people get around it, when 25 people get around it, when 50 or 250 people get around it, it identifies to another person or another, group of people or another organization to say, there must be something about this organization. There must be something about this cause that we must get behind as well. And so I would say that is my aha. If nothing else, I will continue to take this with me everywhere I go kind of moment.
Thank you. And that we're now on the conversation and the panels, questions, direct questions. Terry, I don't know if you're reading, doing a little bit of preliminary stuff, but Marlon asked a question. He said, how do you measure how effective your grants are? And I think you just answered it. We talk a lot about trust-based philanthropy. A lot of our giving circles in CIN we don't do that. Hey, send us a report. Hey, let us have a session. We need to see, we need to do. We use trust-based philanthropy, and we really are intentional about that. But I wanted to open the floor to others to say, how have you all measured the effectiveness of your grants that you've given out in the past?
If I may.
You may.
I'm sorry. I once I get on this soapbox, I keep going, but there was a point in which we looked at metrics to say, what are the scores of this educational scores of this group? And what is our investment? And then afterwards, what were they after our investment? There was that, what is the reading level of this group? What is the number of people or number of people serviced by the organization that or a number of people that were able to a camp, et cetera. Not saying that that wasn't important, but that was one way for us to measure why and tell our story of what our why was. But I would say our evolution has pointed out that we've identified, and we've been able to go by instinct to say, this is something to get behind. This is something that we can get behind and invest in, and understand that in some cases, it may not be an organization that understands reporting, but we can also help them understand why it's important to start reporting so that they can begin that reporting. It also becomes that opportunity of, in this case, like I said, a small investment turning into a much larger one because it identifies them on the lens or the radar for others. So our measure may not look like what other people may be looking for a measurement. And in some cases, it's exactly what they're looking for, but it's what we're looking for from them, not what other people want from them. So being on the supply side of philanthropy, you have the ability to say, this is all I'm looking for from you. Were you a good steward of the gift that we gave you? In that aspect, we're good. Keep doing what you do.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else want to, chime in?
Yeah, I think I'm basically going to say pretty much similar to what Terry said. For us, we kind of mentioned, somebody also asked about, the racial breakdown in Colorado. So we did, back and forth between 9 and 10% of African Americans in the state. So when you think, in the city. So when you think about that, that means we are separated by 1 degree of separation. Everybody knows somebody, everybody's cousin is related to somebody else's cousin. So the eye test is a real thing in Colorado, similar to what Terry was saying. We're going to see exactly what you did with the gift. We're going to see if you were a good steward of it. We're going to see your impact, whether or not we even try to see it. If you're doing exactly what you said you're going to do, we're going to know that you did exactly what you said you would. And it's really important for us to be able to tell that. Social media is very prevalent. If we give a gift to a group that has, a lot of kids, we'll absolutely be able to tell if that programming changed, if it improved, if it was more direct. And it's not something that we necessarily have to look for metrics for. Some of our larger grants, we have asked for metrics. That's only just because the next year we want to give those organizations more funds. So yeah, the eye test is a very real thing here in Colorado.
Thank you. I see we have a hand raised, so I'm going to put the floor to Rodney. Rodney, if you want to speak, I think we can hear you. If you want to show us your lovely face, we can do that too. But feel free to provide your question to the panel.
Hello, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm here with my friend Marlon. We are both interested in starting a giving circle here in Providence, Rhode Island. First of all, thank you. We Give Summit and your team, off the chain, amazing. Thank you for doing this. And thank you, panelists, for giving us your story. My question is about the social aspect of this. I don't know about you fellas. I have tried in my life to join many groups of men of color organizations, men of color groups, committees. And it's been really hard to find consistency after the first couple of meetings. Like, there is something about getting men of color together to do something for like more than 3 months. And then life gets in the way and responsibilities get in the way and other things get in the way. And so when I hear that a giving circle for men of color is lasting almost 10 years, I'm like, what's the secret sauce? Like, how are you able to get men to consistently do something. And I'm being mad stereotypical here, right? That's not sports, right? That's not, the other thing. And it's like, but we get together over this cause over the long haul. I'm really curious to hear if you're willing to share what's been your secret sauce about getting men of color to consistently join, commit, stay committed over the long haul.
I guess
So to answer that one, and then go, because he probably is the newest one here, and I can give you my answer 14 years later.
I think for me, and just being a member of DAP, I am not a founding member of DAP. It was one of the organizations that I absolutely was, pursuing and wanted to be a part of. And what I have learned is you have to turn away from the stereotype that your egos matter more than each other. And I say that in the sense that the men of DAP absolutely move out of the way of each other, in the sense that not one person wants to continuously be the chair. Not one person wants to come up with every idea. And that is extremely important. When you can harp in on the idea that the young guy behind you is a smarter, better version of you, and that's okay. You want to bring him in and allow that brother to be the leader of the organization. And when you have that kind of camaraderie, when you support each other and the next group of leaders, it makes it really easy to stay connected, because it helps everybody to stay young. It helps everybody to stay connected. It helps everybody to have a level of camaraderie that you don't necessarily see in other organizations over time. Being a part of a Black male fraternity myself, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, that is something that I am absolutely privy to as well. And I see it in that organization. But in DAP specifically, there are tons of other people from other organizations that we have just put all of that aside and said, you're a man first, and I want to respect you at that level. And then we're going to make sure that the person behind us that is interested, that has the great ideas, that we promote that person, and that keeps you together, that keeps the wheels turning, that keeps people willing and being able to donate because they see the consistency in what you're doing.
Laphonso, do you have any comments?
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't been around for super long, but obviously in the beginning it's hard to recruit new members and keep people coming. But you kind of develop. For us, we kind of develop a group of core members who you can kind of count on to always be there and to give great ideas or to kind of lead the way. But I think also with your meetings, just being intentional and being organized, because no one wants to show up to a meeting and you're productive for 15 minutes and the other 45 is filler, or however long the meeting is. So making sure that you're actually productive in the meetings, and stuff is planned out beforehand, having a good location and having alcohol or food, whatever you can do to bring people in, that always helps. And I've gone through struggles. I've ran coalitions before, so there's a lot of little things that you can throw in there that can you can get people to continue to keep going.
Thank you. Terry, before you speak, because I know you're going to bring it home. One of the things that I would say is, I know this as a Giving Circle leader as well. I know I'm not a male, but I know this from all of these members. All of these men are part of Community Investment Network, which is a national network of giving circles of people of color. And so that also is another resource. It lets you understand that you are not in this alone. We are a family, and we come together and we help support one another. So, when you have those lulls, you might be able to reach out to another giving circle and say, hey, how did you get past this? Or, hey, I'm having a transition. I don't want to be with this foundation anymore. What did you do? Or, hey, we've had a great success in this apple tree project. Maybe that can be done on the East Coast now. So we're able to have some shared learnings, which is really, really great. And so the Community Investment Network has been a tree that has spawned these circles, but we all come back together because we're rooted in, we are philanthropists showcasing that we can be the change that we want to see for our communities. Now I'm going to pass the mic to Mr. Terry Love so he can tell us about, what it is that he would recommend.
No, so literally everything that everyone has said, I have to echo. And I guess I'll put a repeat on some of those things. Joy, you brought up some of the things that I think are pivotal and also the hardest to have to hear and digest. I think, Rodney, when you asked the question, how do I get you not only to be involved, but then longevity of it? To be a part of a giving circle 14 years ago, to see the people that are active in that giving circle now, some of those faces are consistent, some of them are not. And then starting in Giving Circle 2013, our founders are still present and actively participating. That I think is one of the key and monumental things. So having a strong base and strong foundation, many of the first people that started with us are not with us anymore. And it's because, as you point out, life has happened. New job, our very first member of REAP, months after joining, ended up getting a job in another city and leaving. But his commitment to the organization was to continue out his financial obligation for the rest of that year. And so being intentional about not only your founding, but about your purpose, Laphonso pointed out, making sure that the time spent together counts. I think that that's something that we kind of put together like, oh, this meeting, just show up, do this, and then we'll come together, do that later. And then it becomes part of routine. But if it's actually intentional gathering, if it's actually intention about what's going on with that time spent together, is it a time to actually spend with each other? Happy hour, as Laphonso pointed out, is it go to golf, or is it spending time with Reap and Seed, doing Reap and Seed go bowling? All of those things matter, because what ecosphere are we developing in this time that we're spending together? Is it a time that I want to go to? Last night we had a meeting for REAP. It was 8 p.m. my time, 6 p.m. their time, but I was on Zoom, tuned in while they were in a room actually enjoying each other's company, and I'm sitting in front of a computer eating my plate of food by myself. Yet the energy of what was coming through the computer, the talking about what was happening in the community, and the knowledge that I know that I was able to be a part of in that space made up for those moments. And in that space, I recognized that it's also because I'm continuing to show up 10 years later, or excuse me, almost 10 years later, is a reason why other people are willing to show up in this space as well, because they see that someone who has been here, who doesn't even live in the city anymore, is willing to dial in, and they're a part of this, and they're actively giving not only financially, but also giving talent and treasure and ties to the community as well. Those, I think, are important, pivotal things that have to be a part of that founding when you do decide to come together and create that. The next part of that, though, is understanding those ebb and flows that happen with any organization. Joy brought it up, Community Investment Network, We Give Summit, many other networks exist that help in the creation and the cultivation of these organizations, because they've either been through it before, see other organizations going through it and help guide them through it, or in the case as this, kind of know what you should expect. This timeline, your leadership, people are starting to, get married, have kids, new jobs, etc. All of these things are kind of natural evolutions, but how do you keep them engaged? How do you have that intentional time spent with them to make sure that they keep you as a part of what their movement is? So if your people are moving to a different city, yeah, I'm still gonna call in, even though I'm in a different time zone, it's on that same day of the week. I'm intentionally committed to that. So I think those are the things that you have to be intentional about, but also keep in mind when doing so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know we are close to time, probably got like 2 minutes. One thing that I learned when I joined Community Investment Network nearly 15 years ago was one of the first things another Giving Circle leader said was, it's a giving circle, but it's also a forgiving circle. So you have to be able to give grace to all of your members, because this is volunteer. This is not a job. You want it to be fun. It needs to feel like you all are changing the world together, but it has to be fun. It can't feel like this is a hard job. You won't want to continue to do it. I appreciate the panel today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts and your kind words. I appreciate the very lovely questions that were out there. I think this was a great conversation to be had. We probably should continue it, because we are providers, and as providers, we have to continue to serve. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and feel free to connect with us, Community Investment Network, DAP, REAP, LIFT. We are all available, and we would love to stay connected. Thank you so very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thanks all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Such rich discussion we've had this past hour. So just thank you, Joy, Brandon, Laphonso, Terry. As Taisha shared in the chat, you're blazing the trail for more men to join into this movement. So thank you. There's so much we can learn. And there were a few questions in the chat that we weren't able to get to. So please, let's keep the discussion going. You can drop those questions on Whova and we can keep this going. And so before we wrap up, we're going to launch a poll. If you could please share feedback on this session and join us for our next session. That's starting in just a few minutes. Philanthropy by the people for the people. We'll have the Latino Community Foundation sharing research findings on the impact of giving circles. And we'll also hear from Giving Circle members on their experiences leading civic change. So we'll see you there. Bye.